The gender gap among young voters has reached new extremes. Men under 30 are rallying behind Donald Trump, while women of the same age are moving in the opposite direction. The New York Times is worried about young men turning to Trump, and they published a piece about it on Saturday. So while young men are becoming more conservative than normal, not as conservative as they were in, say, the year 2000, but more conservative than normal, young women today are becoming more extreme, radical, progressive leftists. What's causing this divide? And what does it mean for the future of American politics? Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and smash that like button because it helps us with the algorithm. Also, we do live streams every Friday night at 6 o'clock Eastern. We read interesting news stories of the week and tweak them with a bit of humor, a dash of sarcasm, and a whole lot of conservative common sense. Hope to see you this coming Friday. So, let's talk about the wild gender gap that's popping up among young voters this election cycle. If you thought the battle of the sexes was bad before, get ready because Gen Z is taking it to a whole new level. On one side, we have young men who are increasingly backing Trump. On the other, young women are leaning heavily toward Kamala Harris. So how did we get here? Well, for starters, young women have been activated politically by moments like the Me Too movement, the Roe v. Wade decision in the Dobbs ruling, and having a female VP candidate. There's also groups out there like MoveOn.org and others who prey on young women for donations by sensationalizing anything that could get young women angry. For example, MoveOn has done several email campaigns asking for money and telling their female members that the Supreme Court took away their right to abortion. Well, that's a total lie. I mean, the facts are the facts. The 1973 court lied and said that they found the right to abortion in the Constitution when they never did. They never did because it's not in there, and not even Lawrence Tribe himself could point to it. In fact, you can hold the Constitution up to the light, upside down, and pour lemon juice on it, and you still won't find abortion in there. So these leftist groups and organizations want as much money as they can get, and so they sensationalize everything about Trump, full of lies and sexist gobbledygook, just to piss the women off so they vote for the lefty Democrats and give these groups gobbles of money. I'm not saying women under 30 are stupid, but I am saying they're naive if they believe the nonsense that they're being fed by these groups. Meanwhile, some young men feel like they've been left in the dust by shifting gender norms. They see Trump as the guy holding the line on traditional masculinity, and that's where things get interesting. The divide is bigger than anything we've seen in previous generations. According to polls, the gender gap among young voters has ballooned to as much as 51 points. That's not just a gap, that's a canyon, guys. Why? Well, there's been a lot of messaging, let's say, call it creative, telling women that their rights were snatched away from them by the Supreme Court, which Trump supposedly handpicked. And that messaging is working. For young women, it's driving a wave of support for Harris. Meanwhile, young men are turning into Trump's unapologetic brand of macho politics. They're not out there waving torches or acting out some outdated version of masculinity, but they are drawn to his economic policies and his tough guy persona. The experts say young men without college degrees and men of color are especially attracted to Trump's campaign style. For them, it's not about owning the libs or embracing toxic masculinity, whatever that means this week. It's about feeling like someone's finally got their back in a world that's increasingly unfriendly to guys like them. Remember the days when being a man was about providing for your family? Yeah, a lot of these young Trump supporters still believe in that. But here's where things get a little murky. These guys aren't necessarily socially conservative. They might be okay with same-sex marriage and even support abortion rights to a point. Now go figure, right? But let's not kid ourselves. The Democrats have done a stellar job ignoring these concerns. When you look at the left's messaging, it's all about empowering women, minorities, and anyone but men. That's why when young men look at the political landscape, Trump starts looking like the only one who still thinks guys matter. Take the case of Ranger Irwin, a 20-year-old from Las Vegas, who says society no longer lets boys be boys. He's not alone. The frustration is real. It's palpable. Now, I remember when Columbine happened. You remember that? When those two trench coat knuckleheads went around and shot up the school? Well, there were a lot of social scientists back then who talked about that, and they wanted to figure out what caused it. And one of the theories that went around that a lot of people subscribed to was some years prior to that, the public school system took an official proactive stance to make schools focus more on the girl students than the boy students. They really did that. This is what happens when people listen to feminists, or they're just tired of listening to feminists, so they just give in so they would shut the hell up. What the feminists were telling us is that men were dominating the business world because schools were teaching young men that they were going to be the captains of industry when they grow up and that they would run the world. So there was a little bit of truth to that. Their answer, though, the feminists, was to completely abandon young men and to focus everything, meaning school curriculum, school funding, everything on girl students. Just leave the boys behind. That's what they did. And what these social scientists felt happened was that young men, for the first time in our history, were not being told that they were going to take over the world when their elders retired and stepped down. They were not going to run things. At the same time that this was happening, where young men were being left behind by all the people who were supposed to nurture them along with the girls, the elder men were not stepping down to let the younger lieutenants take over. The elder men started working beyond their expiration date for corporate positions they held, if you will. So a lot of people are saying that you get a Columbine situation when you tell young men in society that they are not worthy of any focus by any adults in their lives who are supposed to be the ones to tell them that they could be the best that they could be in America. They were ignored. So they say that these young men, they sit around, hang out with each other. They get really odd ideas when there are no adults in the picture, including their families. There's no adults in the picture to tell them that there are paths for them to take, to go to college, to get a job, to get married. And what happens? Young men start to become resentful because they know it's intentional. They know that they're being ignored intentionally. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that a bunch of young men under 30 who are voting for Trump are going to go around shooting people or harming people. That's not the point. The point is that these young men are voting for Trump because they realize that he is pretty much the only one out there who is talking about helping them, who's saying that we believe in family values. We believe that if you work hard, you get the rewards. We believe that there is law and order. We believe that if you follow the law, you play by the rules, you can get ahead in life. Because no one else out there is telling them that. That's the point. Meanwhile, the left seems more interested in showcasing drag queens than addressing the struggles of young men trying to get by in a tough economy. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. This shift isn't just happening in swing states, it's nationwide. Even among young Trump supporters, there's a notable absence of the so-called angry misogyny the media loves to rant about all the time. Instead, it's about economic anxiety. It's about wanting to live a life that's not just about survival, but about thriving. It's a novel concept, right? What's at stake here is a larger conversation about masculinity in America. Democrats seem to think the future is female, literally. Their focus is on the needs of women and other minority groups, which leaves out a lot of young men feeling like they're being hung out to dry. Trump's team, on the other hand, is marketing a testosterone ticket with a side of traditional family values. Love it or hate it, it's effective. While some of these guys cheer on Trump's chest-thumping tactics and antics, they're also longing for a kind of masculinity that allows for vulnerability, if you can believe it. They want to be tough, but they also want to talk about mental health, something that's been treated as unmanly for far too long. The takeaway here, this election isn't just about politics, it's about identity. And for young men, Trump's version of masculinity might be just what they're looking for. All right, thank you for watching. Subscribe and hit that notification bell if you want to be kept up to date with all our videos covering news and politics from a fresh conservative angle. I'll see you in the next one. Spread the word.
You don't need that protection. direction. I will walk on glass, I will run 10,000